I'm going to tell you the 7 biggest mistakes that I've made in my career leading my 8-figure cleaning company. Hey everyone, I'm George and I am the president and owner of Impact Cleaning Services. We are a 72-year-old family-owned and operated cleaning company. It's my family's company. I'm a second-generation owner. I love what I do. I was born with a vacuum in my hand. Today, we have 1,000 cleaners coast to coast in Canada. We clean buildings as small as 1,000 square feet and as large as 1,000,000 square feet. We do offices, we do manufacturing, industrial, transportation, event venues, stadiums, arenas. Honestly, anything and everything that needs to be cleaned in the commercial real estate world, we probably do it. So today I'm going to tell you about some of the biggest mistakes that I've made in my career. But before I get into the biggest mistakes, I'm going to tell you a little bit of how I think about mistakes and why I think it's important to acknowledge them, own them, and find the best ways to move forward from them. One of my fundamental principles is admit to and own your mistakes quickly. I can't tell you how much I hate when I hear excuses. I hate making them myself. Like I actually get upset with myself when I make excuses and I try to defend poor behavior or frankly a mistake. Like I hate when I hear people give me them because people think that you're dumb, that I'm not gonna understand that they just made an honest mistake. So my fundamental principle is just own the decisions you made and the outcomes that happen as a result. And if it's a mistake, then that's fine. Just own it, move on. And the biggest thing that or why that bothers me so much today is because I feel like this culture that we live in, we see everything so curated, whether it's on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, all these different things. We see all these business entrepreneurs and influencers, and they all want to, a lot of them want to have this veil of look how smart, how talented I am. I can assure you, I guarantee it, there's not one person building a business of consequence that has not made a mistake or made a bad decision, lost a lot of money, burned a bridge. Like we've all done it. Any business owner, every business owner has. And anyone that tells you otherwise, you should run the other way. Do not look at them as like the pinnacle of like, I want to be this person. I want to be perfect. I want to have a shining armor and I'm going to build this amazing business without making any errors. Impossible. If you want to earn respect from people, whether it's your employees, whether it's your clients, whether it's prospects, whether it's friends, whoever it is, one of the fastest ways to earn respect truly is to be able to admit your mistakes and just own them and move on. Like people will respect you more if you can just show that you're fallible as a human and you just acknowledge it. No excuses, move on. I promise you. I was born into this business and I've still made a bunch of mistakes. And today I'm going to tell you the 7 biggest mistakes that I've made and the ones that I plan to never make again. The first mistake, and one of the biggest ones that you should avoid if you want to be successful in cleaning, is excusing poor communication. You cannot let it slide when people don't communicate properly internally and externally. Communication will make you successful or make you fail in cleaning. And I know it might sound kind of odd that communication is so important. Like you would think that just if you're great at cleaning, you're going to win. But that's not always the case. Yes, you need to be great at cleaning. Objectively, you have to be great at what you do if you want to build a great company. But I've seen companies that are above average at cleaning, that are exceptional at communicating, and they do very well. You should still be great at what you do. You should hone your craft and your product every day and ensure that you deliver to the highest standard. But we deal with, like, our product is people and people make mistakes. The first thing I said in the beginning of this video, people are going to make mistakes. Your cleaners are going to make mistakes. Your team is going to make mistakes. You will make mistakes. Being able to communicate quickly, clearly, and consistently will help you avoid those mistakes becoming big problems and costing you customers and revenue. In my company, I will not excuse poor communication. Everyone in my team knows, we repeat it ad nauseum, that you have to communicate internally and externally as fast as possible and as frequently as possible. I've said to my team that I would rather have a client or a prospect tell us that we are annoying than one tells us, oh, you never told me that. That is worse. Again, because you deal with so many people, you have customers that, there's so many variables that you can't control in this business. The only thing you can control is what you do here. And communication, you control. You can decide what you're going to tell someone, what you're going to share. And it's better to overshare than undershare. Always, always. Internally for sure, because you want everyone to know what's happening, everyone to be on the same page. But you want your clients to not use anything against you and have an excuse to say, again, you never told me. So number one, I will never excuse poor communication. I did for a long time. I'd say it's fine. We're going to get better at it. Number one, just be absolute and just be very strict on what you tolerate when it comes to communication. Number two, meetings without metrics. For most of my time at this company, when I started out in my early days, we would sit in our management meetings and we would just talk about what's happening in our business. And that's important. It's important to share updates, but a lot of that can be done asynchronously, meaning you can use Teams, you can use email, and you can update people as you go. Again, circling back to communication. You can just keep people up to date all the time. So when you get into meetings, a lot of the context and a lot of these updates should already be shared so that it's out of the way. Because when you lead meetings with these conversations, they can just, you can spend an hour talking about something that could have been done in a 1-minute email. So we started shifting towards leading our meetings with metrics. Again, we still talk about things, we still have discussions, but it's really looking at what are our KPIs, how are we tracking towards them, what are we doing about them, what does the P&L look like, what does our job costing look like, what's our retention, what are we spending. You should always lead with metrics. If you lead with metrics, you can have conversations, but every conversation should be based around the things that move the needle in the business. So in other words, establish your KPIs, figure out what moves the needle for each person or each team, give that person and team one KPI. And when you have meetings, start by discussing that metric and build off that. Again, it's okay you should talk. I just said that you should talk as much as you want, share as openly as you want, but lead with metrics because that's what makes the business move. That will determine if you make money, if you're successful. Your metrics are the most important thing in your business. Another mistake that I've made in my career is giving people roles with no incentive structure attached to them. Charlie Munger has my favorite quote: "Show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcome." If you want to understand what somebody is going to do, regardless of what you tell them to do, you want to understand what they're actually going to do, is just look at what they're incentivized to do. The incentives will tell you exactly where the line is going, where that train is headed. And if you want to drive behavior, you need to give strong incentives to encourage and motivate that behavior. When you are hiring, you can't just say, here's the job, here's your salary, and we'll give you a discretionary bonus based on the company performance. What does that mean? What is the company performance? How do you measure that? If I worked for a company and I did not know what I'm incentivized, gold on, compensated on, what would I be motivated to do? I would sit there, count the time, hope we do well. That's it. That's the reality of it. You might get some people that just work hard for the sake of working hard, but for the most part, people are going to be driven based on the incentives. So what we changed here a few years ago, giving every person and every team one KPI. We make it super simple. We're not giving them 10 things. We have one ultimate goal. How they get to that goal is largely up to them and the team. We can have that conversation, but they have one goal and one outcome we are trying to achieve. And if they know that if they hit that outcome, they will be compensated accordingly. So the incentive structure is tied to that outcome. Now, what is important when you're developing KPIs or outcomes that are tied to incentives, you have to make them as black and white as possible. You have to make them so that the person can influence them, and also that other people can't sandbag it or hurt their ability to hit that outcome. It's not always perfect. It's not always the case. We have times where we have incentives built in that involve a little bit of gray area in some conversations. If you have that, you have to be very reasonable as an owner. You can't have someone achieve a goal or miss a goal slightly and you penalize them because something that you did. So you have to be very good at removing your emotions, at not looking at the final numbers, and being able to just be fair with people when it comes to that, when those gray areas. But in a perfect world, you want to have incentives tied to KPIs, again, that are black and white, easily defined. And my philosophy is generally you want them to be tough but attainable. You don't want to give somebody a ridiculous goal that would make you a ton of money and they're going to make pennies on if they make it. It has to be something that you know that if they work hard to hit, but would benefit both parties if they hit it. Don't be cheap when it comes to incentives. Don't be cheap on compensation. If you put the right incentives in place, it shouldn't matter how much the employee makes. You'll be, as the employer, you will make more money. So give up more of the pie and watch how fast the results improve. Show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcome. Software with no measurable ROI has been one of the most painful mistakes that we've made in this company. We pride ourselves in being a first mover and early adopter of technology. My brother and I have always been at the forefront of the latest trends in the industry, even adjacent industries. Like what are we seeing that's happening that we can bring into our business and help drive improvements, whether being more effective, whether being more efficient, moving faster, driving savings, whatever it is. We have done things in the past for the sake of being a first mover, which is wrong. Like, it's cool to say you're a first mover and you're innovative, but at a certain point, if it's not driving results, well, then clients are going to see that and they're going to say, what am I really paying for here? You said it's going to drive X and we didn't get X, Y, or Z. So what's the point of spending this money? Why does it matter that you move fast if you can't be effective? So when we started out early on, we thought move fast equals innovation, equals, being the best. That is a mistake. Don't do that. Don't implement for the sake of implementing. Determine the problem you're solving, what the pain is. Like, why are you implementing this thing? What does a successful world look like if we solve that pain? And then work backwards to say, what software can we find or technology can we find to achieve that end goal? And on top of that, what potential ROI can we see if we achieve that goal with this software? I will say in my experience, even though the old way of like implement and hope for savings is wrong, and you're not going to find ROI or be lucky to find ROI, in the new world that we operate in of like, what's the pain, what's the outcome, how can we solve for it? We try to measure the ROI, but we also we're not delusional. ROI takes time. You're not going to find any software that's going to come in and in 3 months, you're going to turn it on and you're all of a sudden going to have 10x in EBITDA, or it's going to grow your revenue, 5 times. It doesn't work that way. Everything takes time. Any implementation with software is going to take you time to not only onboard, but get your team on, to understand this new world, have everyone kind of working in this new world. And then over time, you can see some ROI, but you have to stay very close to it. So anyways, one of the biggest mistakes, do not implement software for the sake of implementing software, even though there's a lot of exciting and cool things out there that can probably drive efficiencies to a lot of companies, regardless of the ROI or the outcome they're trying to drive, because they are stuck in the past. Always know what you're trying to solve for and what ROI you think you can get out of it before you start pouring money into it. Because we've probably spent easily over $250,000 in this mistake. And that's painful. It's a lot of money. So don't do it. On the theme of software, one of the biggest mistakes that I made when it comes to implementing software is not staying involved in the process as the owner. It doesn't matter what size of company you are. I am a firm believer that the owner or owners need to be involved in the implementation of any software technology. The reason being, and I've seen it firsthand, I've seen it as the owner, I've seen it in a business, I've seen it as someone who built his own startup, and I've seen it as someone who sells software. So I've seen it from all angles. Everyone in the company buying the software, everyone in that company is going to have a different view of what success looks like. They're going to have different ways of working. They're going to have different wants and needs. And an owner has a very different want and need than, an administrative person. It's not a bad thing. It's just, it's different. And as the owner of a cleaning business, we're operating with tight margins. We're trying to implement software typically to improve those margins and improve the speed at which we can do things and the outcomes we can drive for our customers and our people. And the owners, again, outcomes are very different than what everyone else's are. In a perfect world, you're all aligned, but again, there's still going to be scope creep and pull in different directions. So it is, if you want your software to be successful, you have to be involved. We tried implementing like 3-4 CRMs. I would get them, tell everyone, hey, use a CRM. I'd leave it, come back, disaster. We got HubSpot in. I'm still working on it to this day. I have teammates now working with me in it, trying to keep it moving, constantly improving it. But to get it to stick and have everyone use it, I had to be the champion of it. I had to set up the way I wanted the information to go in, to come out, how clean I wanted it to be, what fields I want, the language I want to use. I had to do everything from the beginning. It's not a bad thing. I actually enjoyed it, but it took me a lot of mistakes to realize that I have to be involved in all of it, not to micromanage. You don't have to be looking over everyone's shoulder. Like, you just got to stay there to just watch where the ball and the goalposts are moving, because they will move. Like with anything, there's always scope creep. Everybody has a little bit of something they like, their preferences. So it is imperative that if you are going to implement software as the owner, you cannot delegate it all off. You should stay involved as long as possible and just see it through to the end. Again, you can be in the background, but you should still be around, making sure that you're watching what's happening. This mistake might be a controversial one. I will never hire business development people that have spent their entire life in the cleaning industry. The main reason is I have seen a lot of people in this role. We've had people in this role, and in my opinion, they don't understand what high-level sales inputs look like and outputs look like. They've spent their time in a world that is largely relationship-driven. And the cleaning world is still very relationship driven. You need to be personable. You need to cultivate relationships, build a rapport with people. That will probably get you as far as being great at cleaning. If people like you, want to work with you, they'll work with you, even if you're, above average at cleaning. I have yet to find somebody that has spent their whole life in this industry that doesn't understand deeply how to build top decile go-to-market motion. And I'm saying that as someone who spent his whole life in this industry and I spent a lot of time in business development. I did not understand what a high-level go-to-market sales motion looks like until I stepped out of this world and went into the software world for a little bit, 2 forays in the software world. And it wasn't until I was around absolute killers and very smart people then started to understand what it takes to build repeatable pipeline. So not a knock on everyone out there, it's a knock on myself as well. Spending your whole life in one industry will not tell you how to build the best practices. You need to go learn elsewhere and then bring it in here. And we are doing that here every day, trying to find out what the best companies are doing, not just in cleaning, but in service broadly, and then in software, in pharma, in hardware, whatever it is. We try to observe from other industries and see what we can bring in. So one mistake that I made, and I'll never do it again, if someone in sales or business development has spent their whole career in the cleaning industry, we don't have a place for them here, unfortunately. That's not to say everybody in the industry does not have a place here. In fact, there are roles within our organization we would view people in the industry as high value and integral because there's certain skills that you need to succeed in those roles. For example, operations. Like to hire someone to be really good at cleaning operations, sure, we can teach them, but I'd rather find A players within the industry to jump into operations because they can hit the ground running from day one. The skills are very transferable. All they're really learning is the new culture, the new language, what we value, and so forth. But again, when it comes to sales and business development, I will not hire somebody that spent their whole life in this industry. Another big mistake is discretionary bonuses and making everything opinion-based when it comes to year-end compensation. I think this is a huge mistake and a great way to create uncertainty and anxiety within your organization. If you want to build a great company, you want to find the best people, A players, self-starters that come in here, it needs to be clearly defined what success looks like. It needs to be clearly defined what their role entails, what the growth opportunities look like, what their obviously comp looks like, but what is the upside that they stand to gain if they perform at the highest level. So by making every bonus discretionary, meaning it's the opinion of the owner, what everyone gets at the end of the year, you're not going to get the best results. The way you'll get the best results, going back to the point about Charlie Munger said, show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome, is put a very black and white compensation structure in place, define what the goals are, define what wins and losses look like and what success looks like, and make sure that the bonus is tied to performance, not discretion. The caveat to that is you can have part of it tied to discretion, meaning someone can succeed, but the company as a whole can be failing. Then, well, if you don't have the money to pay someone, then obviously there's a bit of a disconnect there, and there needs to be some protections there because you don't want to be going into debt to pay out bonuses. But you do need to work very hard to avoid that scenario because, again, if somebody performs at the highest level and the rest of the company didn't, that person should not be penalized for everybody's shortfall. So you need to make sure you're thinking about that as the owner. And if you want to build the best company, you want to build a great business, you need to find ways to mitigate the downside risk. You can still have a bit of language about discretion when it comes to performance of the company, but you should find a way to keep stuff aside so that the A players can be compensated regardless of the company outcomes, and they're solely incentivized and compensated based on their outcomes. So again, performance bonuses is better than discretionary bonuses. So those are 7 mistakes that I have made in my career as the leader of an 8-figure commercial cleaning company with 1,000 employees that operates nationally. If I could go back to my 22-year-old self, I wish I could have known these things and avoided these mistakes. So if you are on your journey right now, regardless of where you're at, whether you're early on, later in the game, it's never too late to realize that you're making mistakes or doing things not as effective as you can be and course correcting. So hopefully you learn from my mistakes and avoid those problems. I can tell you when I made these changes to our company, things started to flow and move easier, faster. People felt better and everyone was more clear on what their role is and how they play an integral part into the growth of this company. It made my life a lot easier. So avoid my mistakes. If you like this video, please make sure to follow, subscribe, hit that like button, comment. Let me know if there's anything else that I can answer. I always respond to the comments. So yeah, thanks for watching. Tell your friends and good luck out there building your cleaning business. See you later.